I first met Stephane Grappelli in 1975 in Crieff, Perthshire in Scotland, which is actually about 10-minute drive from where I am now. And how I met him was because I'd met a guitar player that would really become my biggest influence, my guitar mentor, Ike Isaacs. And Ike was working with Stephan at that time, and Ike worked with him for a number of years. Yeah, so I went along. So I met Stephan that time, and Ike said, "Oh, this is Martin Taylor, he's a young guitar player," and blah blah blah. And we chatted briefly, and that was kind of it. And it wasn't till a few years later, 1979, May 1979, a guitar player dropped out from a series of dates Stephan was doing in France, and I was working with the bass player in London, and he said, "Oh, I told Stephan about you, and would you be free to do these dates in France?" And he remembers you from when he met you through Ike. So I went there. I went to France. That was May 1979. I did 6 or 7 concerts and a couple of TV shows with Stephan, and I really thought, I was so thrilled because I grew up listening to this music of Stephan and Django. So I knew all the tunes, I knew everything, so it wasn't a problem for me. I knew the whole repertoire. After we did those dates, Stephan said to me, "Oh, I'm going to America in a couple of months' time. Would you like to play on that tour as well?" I said, "Yeah." So I then went and played in America on a tour. When that was finished, Stephan said, "Would you like to do the UK tour next month?" I said, "Yeah," and I did that. And pretty much that's how it continued for 11 years. So to this day, I still don't know whether I was really in the band or not. I was really thrilled working with Stephan. 11 years and made over 20 albums with him, including 2 duo albums. The thing that struck me with Stephan, the observations I had straight away with working with him, he came from an era just a bit further back, and he was very conscious of playing for the audience and sharing the music with the audience. Whereas a lot of the musicians I'd worked with before were very much, they just played what they played, and if you like it, you like it, and that was kind of it. But Stephan had this real connection with the audience, and that struck me tremendously. You know, Stephan never ever gave me any advice. He never said to me, "Play like this or play like that." Sometimes he would say, "Oh, if you played a chord run up at the end with chords, it'd be it'd have a really big impact. It'd be nice, then I could go into this." And occasionally he would come out with a few things. One of the things he always used to say was, if we rehearsed something but we weren't sure whether it was going to go okay, he said that Maurice Chevalier said to him, "Start well, end well, and the middle will take care of itself." That was always the idea. Always start strong, always end strong, so always have some kind of arrangement, and we can improvise in the middle of that. And I remember my dad asking me, I'd been working with Stephan for a while, and he said, "Has Stephan ever given you any advice?" And I said, "No, we just play and that's it." So he said, "Well, you should ask him." So we were on a plane one day on tour in America, and I said to Stephan, "Stephan, have you got any advice for me?" And he took his glasses off, put the magazine, and he said, "Yes, my dear." He said, "Never tell your wife where you keep your money." And that was it. And then he put his glasses back on and carried on reading. So that was the only the piece of advice I ever got from him. Watching Stephan play and sitting next to him, sitting so close. I mean, I would sit here and Stephan would sit like there. I used to watch him and how effortlessly he played. And that was one of the secrets of his longevity, the fact that he used very little effort. It was just beautifully controlled. Even when he was feeling very weak, and in his later years when he was pretty old and weak and unwell, he could still play, and he still had that beautiful control of the bow and his intonation. I never once heard Stephan play even vaguely out of tune. His intonation was perfect, his tone was perfect, the bowing technique, dynamics, everything was there, really right to the end. And he just got better and better and better and better. There were times when I would sit on stage and I used to think to myself, this doesn't happen to every musician, to have this opportunity to work with somebody who is a living legend who's such an important part of a musical genre and legacy that I've kind of become part of. And here I am with the real deal sitting right next to me. I mustn't forget this. And I used to make a point of really taking in every single detail, be very mindful about everything that was going on, so that even now I can kind of recollect a lot of things. I can kind of hear Stephan's bowing. I can hear the way he would have a little cough sometimes when he was playing. All of that is still there. I really remember this. For those of us that do have that opportunity, it's an incredible blessing for us. It's an amazing thing to happen. And then to really, through that, then really become part of that legacy, the music that's got me playing as a kid. My dad, I was listening to the Hot Club of France before I was born, when my mother was walking around in my mother's stomach. And I think we have to remember as well that Django and Stephan were the first European musicians really to give jazz a European voice. So that's, any of us European jazz musicians must always look to them. I'm very strong about the history of our music, and we have to remember that we're part of that. We're the descendants. They're our ancestors. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them. Stephan had a great energy, and he liked to be around young musicians. He enjoyed that creative energy, that younger energy that he got, and enthusiasm from young musicians, which can sometimes dwindle as we musicians sort of turn into old farts, really. But he certainly never became that. He still had that enthusiasm and that young spirit. Sometimes journalists used to come up and interview him, and Stephan's manager used to say, before they went into interview him, they would say, "Don't start the interview with talking about Django." And they misunderstood that. They thought that Stephan maybe had a problem about Django. Ask him about what he's doing now. Ask him about the musicians he's working with now, because that's what interested him. He told me he wasn't really interested in what had happened in the past. It had happened. Django and Stephan played together, I think it was only 6 years. Incredible 6 years, and amazing music that happened at that time. But Stephan went on to he was still playing when he was 89 years of age. I worked with Stephan for 11 years, and I knew Stephan for 25 years. So he was more interested in what was going on in the present, and even looking at what he was going to do next. The last time I saw Stephan I think it was, he just had his 89th birthday, I think it was. It was in around about January, February 1997. I was on a solo tour of Australia, and Stephan was staying in the next hotel to me, and we met in Sydney, and we met up. Spent a little time together just chatting and talking away, and he was obviously getting very weak. And I couldn't believe he was 89 and he'd flown all the way out to Australia to do a tour. But right to the end, I always remember I did a TV documentary with Stephan where he came and visited me at home, and there was a beautiful thing that he said. The interviewer said, "Will you ever retire?" And Stephan looked a bit kind of bemused, and then he said, "One day my bow will drop, but they will say he played right to the end." And that's pretty much what he did. Shortly after that tour in Australia, he had a stroke, and he had a series of strokes. He couldn't play anymore, and he died just a month before his 90th birthday. I was at his funeral in Paris, and it was very much a celebration, because what an amazing life. Incredible man, incredible life, and I'm very, very honoured that I was able to be part of it for that period of time.